didn't produce anything in college, couldn't stay healthy. So why are we worried about that?
Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm Tyler from Aspire Sports, and per usual, like I said yesterday, we're gonna be doing a daily show actually, with a new guest every single day. And today I have Max. Some of you may know him from Fantasy Football AZ over on TikTok. So what's up, Max? And thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
How's it going? Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to go over some fantasy football stuff and just talk ball.
With that being said, let's go ahead and talk. There's really I don't think there's any training OTA news or anything like that. Have you seen anything?
No, and
talked
there's
about some
nothing
yesterday.
Yeah, and honestly, like I take that stuff kind of with a grain of salt because you hear stuff about like Drake London being unguardable and like Tua impressing. It's like they're gonna say that. You know what I mean?
It's the
like
ultimate hype season right now. Every guy's in the best shape of their life. Yada. It's the same stuff every single year. So
yeah,
the only thing you want to pay attention to are just injuries. Not so much right now, but especially once we get into the actual training camp, which starts up mid-July. Keep an eye on that, and then rookie battles are big things too. So let's go ahead and talk about your underdog drafts that you've been doing. So how many have you done so far?
So I've done 45 underdog drafts
45.
So far. So a lot. It feels like a lot for me. It's the most I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel pretty good about all of them. One thing that I'm doing that like I think I'm going to change my strategy going forward is I've had a lot of shares of a lot of different players. Through my first like 45 to 50 leagues. I think that's like how I wanted to play those first 45 to 50. I'm only going to join another 50 to 100. And I think in those next 50 or 100, I'm going to buy in on only guys that I really like this year and like double down on my like analysis on players and not like try to like put my chips in a bunch of different baskets.
Getting like your exposure out there for different players and stuff.
Yeah. Like I was kind of like putting my chips in a bunch of different baskets. You know, I would get a couple shares of Derrick Henry here and there. I don't love Derrick Henry at all this year. And just kind of like drafting according to ADP and just like steals that fall to me. Oh, okay, I like that guy at this price, whatever. But you know, going forward, I'm really just going to draft guys that I think are going to pop off and go crazy this year, which can be really risky.
Right. And so far throughout your drafts, what are some things that you're noticing? Maybe like a player or two that are going too high, or a player or two that you think are going too low. Who are a couple of guys?
Yeah, I think the running back position is the most important position to like talk about like guys who are getting overdrafted, because if you don't hit on your running backs, your team is done for. You can kind of make up for a lack at the tight end position or quarterback position and stuff like that. You know, you can find later guys that can really perform, but the running back position you can't. So there's like 2 or 3 guys that really come to mind. They're getting overdrafted. One is Christian McCaffrey. For me, it doesn't really matter what you think of Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't really matter if you think he's like this like league winning, could be the RB1 overall again. The truth of the matter is he's missed over 20 games in the last 2 years. He rarely is on the field. When he's on the field, he's great, phenomenal, the best running back in fantasy, like easily. He's averaging like 27 fantasy points without a touchdown last year. So he was great in those 7 games, but it's only 7 games. And the reality is, and the same thing goes for Derrick Henry, there's this rule of 1,500. I've talked about this a couple times on my channel, and I'm sure you know about it, but for those of you listening who don't know, the rule of 1,500 is in regular season touches specifically, if a running back has over 1,500 career touches, the chances of them being an elite fantasy football running back are slim to none. It's never really been done. It's only been done 3 times in NFL history. That's LaDainian Tomlinson, LaShawn McCoy, and Adrian Peterson. And unless you think Christian McCaffrey is on pace to be the same caliber of player or Derrick Henry is, then they're not going to do that. History repeats itself. So for Derrick Henry especially, he got hurt last year on career touch 1,496. You can't make it up. So the chances of him coming back and being like extremely elite are pretty much 0. So I'm avoiding those 2.
I agree, especially with Derrick Henry. For me, I want to say I'm totally out on Christian McCaffrey. I can't do it because I just know how good he is. But I feel confident that Derrick Henry may fall off a cliff. And it's just because, like you said, too many touches. And now he's 28 years old. These running backs, once they get to about age 28, is really once they fall off a cliff. And one thing that I talk about a lot as well is just how the team uses them. They don't use them responsibly. Like Derrick Henry should not, I don't care what you think. You know, he's a freak of nature. He's going to break down if you're giving him 40 touches a game. Same with Christian McCaffrey. And my biggest thing is I'm creating this own narrative of my own. But with Christian McCaffrey, think about this coaching staff. chances are this coaching staff is probably going to be fired at the end of the season because this team is probably not going to be very good. So if you're the coaching staff, what's your best option to try to win and prolong your coaching career for this team? Give Christian McCaffrey the ball 30 times a game. So what's probably going to happen? Well, he's probably going to get that, and then he's probably unfortunately going to get hurt because that's just not how he should be used right now. So I agree, and we'll talk about this in a little bit about the second overall pick. So any guys that you like right now that you think are possibly going too low that you find yourself, man, I just going to draft him every single time if he's that low?
Yeah, so again, I'll follow up with the running back position and then go elsewhere. But DeAndre Swift is one of them. I'm a huge DeAndre Swift guy this year. I liked him last year, but really this year he fits every mold you can fit to be the RB1 overall. There's like 5 boxes you need to check. This is something that I've found in my research. Those 5 boxes being you have to have a good to elite offensive line to be the RB1 overall. That is for that year. Good to elite offensive line. You know, have an average to below average quarterback. You can't have like a good quarterback or an elite quarterback to be the RB1 because you need your offense to rely on that running back more than they do on the actual arm talent of the quarterback.
Right.
You need to have receiving upside, the clear workhorse back in your offense. And then the final one, which is really the most important one, is you can't have a receiver in that offense finish top 15 in PPR formats for that year. If they finish like wide receiver 13, 14, 15, even 12, you can get away with it. You can be RB1. Todd Gurley did it in 2018 or 2017. But really, you don't want anybody in the top 15. And he fits every box. And he's only one of 3 guys that do. And that's Jonathan Taylor, him, and Alvin Kamara if he plays all 17, but he's not going to. He's going to get suspended.
Right.
So it's really only him and Taylor that I can see being the RB1. And when I'm getting DeAndre Swift at pick 17, 18, 19 as my RB2, it's like, yeah, all day.
That's how it was last year. He was totally my guy. I mean, I do love him this year. I think he's just a phenomenal player. And especially in half-point PPR leagues, like just stud. So
yeah, I mean, he was averaging 6 receptions a game or 6 targets a game last year. So
6.5. He was tied with Christian McCaffrey and 6.5. Well, that was prior to him getting hurt, which at the end of the season, he came back. And I think the first game back, he didn't even really play a whole lot. So I just the first 12 games of the season. Yeah. Averaging 6.5. What a stud.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. For someone like the wide receiver position, I think is going pretty low. Someone that I like a lot is Diontae Johnson right now. I know we're going to talk about him a little bit later in the show, but like going after guys like Cortland Sutton on Underdog ADP right now, and like Marquise Brown and Jalen Waddle, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous though. To me, I don't get it. I don't see what it is. I mean, I get the whole like 2 years removed from an ACL injury. I understand it, but like pick 39, pick 40 for Cortland Sutton over a guy like Diontae Johnson, who's had a wide receiver 8 finish with Big Ben, got a quarterback upgrade.
Right.
The only added target here is George Pickens, who didn't produce anything in college, couldn't stay healthy. So why are we worried about that? I don't get it.
No, I agree. And we'll talk about him in a minute. But I do like that one as well because and things will change a lot, especially once it comes to August. And a lot of people are going to be drafting and doing their drafts, and you're going to have so much content being pushed out. So many more people are going to be interested. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in August. I'm excited to see what the ADPs look like then. All right. Yeah. So, talking about the Steelers, let's talk about the Steelers. All right. You're a Steelers fan. I'm a Steelers fan. Love my Steelers.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Well, you talked about Diontae. So right now, what's he currently? Last I saw was ADP of 19. So if that is true, he is going.
That's it right now. Yeah.
That's crazy. So he really is going behind Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's been moving up the draft board. So you're taking him there every single time. Is there any concern for you with, obviously Big Ben was a shell of himself last year, but he did really force feed Diontae the ball a lot. So is there some concern with you in terms of Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky throwing the ball?
No, not really. I mean, here's the reality. Last time we saw Mitch Trubisky be a starting quarterback, Allen Robinson was awesome. So like we saw him be great. The last time we saw Kenny Pickett throw the ball to his wide receiver 1, it was Jordan Addison at Pitt. Right. And Jordan Addison is a carbon copy of Diontae Johnson. When I watch Jordan Addison, I see a Diontae Johnson. I see a crafty route runner. I see a great guy after the catch, same build, same frame, great hands, productive. Like they're really similar. Like the skill set is just so similar. So I see no reason why he wouldn't continue to be the wide receiver 1. I think the main concern here with Diontae Johnson is that people think that Chase Claypool is going to have this like extended role and that George Pickens is going to be some crazy target monster.
Yeah.
Guys, he got 160 plus targets last year. He's the clear wide receiver one. There were so many games where he runs a 5-yard slant and takes it 40 yards. Like, there is no other player in the offense that is as dynamic as Diontae Johnson. There's no reason to believe that he won't still be the wide receiver one for the Steelers. There's no reason to believe he won't see 8, 9, 10 targets a game. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, how hard people are sleeping on. And Cortland Sutton over him is disgusting.
No, I agree. And one of my favorite things when people talk trash on Diontae Johnson is, oh, he can't catch. He has his drops. And it's like, I mean, I put out a TikTok the other day of Diontae Johnson had fewer drops, lower drop percentage than Justin Jefferson, Deebo
Diggs.
Samuel, Diggs. Like, oh, these guys can't
Jamar
catch
Chase.
either. Like, it's just like, okay.
And the truth is, though, with that specific stat, like the drop percentage with him, is like he's a really great yak player. Like, he's awesome after the catch, like I was mentioning. And this is a common theme with players who are really good after the catch. CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, Jamar Chase. All of those players have a drop problem. It's not a drop problem, though. It's quite simply a concentration issue.
Yeah.
All it is their ball is here. They're not even looking at the ball when they're catching it, and they're turning to then make a play after the catch. That's what they're doing. It's not like they have bad hands. We've seen Diontae Johnson against the Chiefs, that one really insane two-handed grab he had over, I think it was Tre'Davious something, whatever his name is, they got traded. And then he had that catch against Buffalo in the back of the end zone where it was bobbled and he still brought it down. It's like, this guy has good hands. He makes difficult catches consistently, and he has Big Ben at quarterback he's producing. Like, he doesn't have bad hands. It's such a casual take.
I agree. I think it's so lame when people say that. So let's talk about, instead of fantasy football real quick, well, let's talk about just this one other player. Obviously, we got Diontae Johnson. And then we have Najee Harris, who's currently going as RB5. First, we'll talk about Najee. Are you interested in Najee, where he's currently going? And then is there anybody outside of those two guys for fantasy football purposes that you're interested this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, to answer that, like, am I interested in anybody else? No, I'm not. Not interested in Pat Freiermuth. It feels like a Robert Tonyan type thing in 2020, where Robert Tonyan had like 10 or 11 touchdowns with Aaron Rodgers, who was just wheeling and dealing, but he was not a huge reception guy, not a huge yardage guy. Same thing goes for Pat Freiermuth, who was great, but like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about. I think it just feels like his 9 or 10 touchdowns he had last year is going to turn into like 5 or 6. That's what it feels like to me. And I wouldn't be surprised. Like, that wouldn't feel like a horrible year for him. He's a great tight end. Like, he's going to be good in the league for a long time, but this isn't the year of the Pat Freiermuth breakout, in my opinion. Usually it takes longer for tight ends, and George Pickens is not really somebody I'm looking to grab. He's really talented and like could be great, but probably not. And then same goes for Chase Claypool. As for Najee Harris, though, like at RB5, like, I don't mind that price at all. He finished RB3 or 4 last year, and was a PPR monster. People are concerned that with no Big Ben there, he won't have the same like chemistry with his quarterback and won't get as many dump offs. I mean, Kenny Pickett will throw the dump off. We saw it in college. Like, he'll throw it. Mitchell Trubisky might throw it a little bit less, but I mean, either way, I don't think Najee Harris is going to see no reception game, like no work in the receiving game. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. He's a great receiving back. At RB5, I think that's like higher than what I think he'll finish in my rankings. I have him at RB7, but again, it's rare that you can find a player that you feel confident, oh, he'll finish right at his ADP or a little bit lower. Like, with a guy like Christian McCaffrey, he could finish RB50. Derrick Henry could finish RB30. The guys who are going around him, Dalvin Cook could finish RB18 again. Like, those guys are risky. So I would much rather have a Najee Harris and just be safer there.
I agree. And kind of what I talked about last year. I mean, same thing. It's just, this is a dude that you know he's going to see all the touches. Like, there's nobody else. And they came out and said, oh, he might see a lesser workload. Like, okay, instead of 400 total touches, he'll probably see about 350. Like, it's not that big of a deal. The only thing which I think, and let's go ahead into the next segment, where how good do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be? I've seen. Well, go ahead. You go ahead and talk about it, and then I'll go.
Yeah, I made a record prediction for my Steelers. I think we go 5-12 or 6-11. That's where I think we're going to be at. Like, I know this whole Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season thing. Like, I get it. You gotta understand too, though. Like, Big Ben led the league in game-winning drives last year. I don't know if we can count on a rookie quarterback or Mitchell Trubisky to do the same thing. And also too, a lot of teams like choked really hard against the Steelers. Like, a lot of teams really choked. So it's like, it was rough for a lot of teams. Like, they just had bad games against the Steelers. Like, look at the Chiefs in the first quarter and second quarter of that playoff game. It's like, they looked horrible. Like it's just weird. The teams play bad against the Steelers. That's the truth. But here's the truth though with this Pittsburgh Steelers this year, and this is why I didn't really like our draft all that much. We have no linebackers. Like really, outside of TJ Watt, like really, it's just Alex Highsmith's all right. Like there's some solid pieces there, but really, you need a linebacker in the draft if you're not going to get offensive line or DB. Didn't get either of those either. You didn't add the offensive line. You know, we got what's his name from the Bears? We got somebody from the Bears who like should be decent.
James Daniels.
Yeah, James Daniels, like he should be all right, maybe. But like that's not a piece that you like want to build a rookie quarterback around, like who had an awful offensive line. Like, I don't know. The offensive line is not going to be good. And the secondary is really bad. No lockdown CB1, no lockdown CB2, no good slot corner. Really, Trey Norwood was all right last year, but like still wasn't a cornerstone piece. And Minka's solid. Minka's great, but he's a safety. Secondary is going to be bad. Linebacker core is bad. The only redeemable pieces in this defense are Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and Minka. And those three can't carry an entire NFL defense. It was proven last year. We were the worst run defense in the NFL. It's like, it was horrible. So yeah, I think we win 5 or 6 games, maybe 7, but not a winning record though.
No, I agree. I think that they can get close to possibly being one game above 500, but I do think with Tuitt retiring too, I think that was a big blow to the defensive front.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see because what Mike Tomlin said last year at the end, basically kind of throwing Big Ben under the bus, saying, you know, you paint the barn red because they want a mobile quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see if this offense at least looks somewhat better than what it did last year because it was absolutely dreadful. But we'll see how it goes. In terms of fantasy football, though, definitely those two guys. And then how do you feel about Kenny Pickett? When do you think we see Kenny Pickett? Do you think he starts the season? How many games do we get out of Mitchell Trubisky?
This is not I go back and forth on all the time because I really don't know. I really don't know what to think about it. Kenny Pickett was my QB3 in the draft. I thought I was really QB4, but I was way too high on Carson Strong. I think he's actually like an elite like ball thrower. I think if he had a good offensive line, he could be a top 10 quarterback. But that's a whole different thing. Carson Strong truth is like so far out of the realm of like realistic. But I had Matt Corral and Malik Willis over him. I think if you wanted a mobile quarterback, why not go Malik Willis? I guess I understand that teams didn't like him. I guess that's why he fell to the 3rd round. But I had Malik Willis over him, and I definitely had Matt Corral over him. I mean, there was a period like 3 or 4 months before the draft, like kind of at the end of the college football season, where Matt Corral was QB1, projected top 5 pick to the Texans. It's like he was awesome. I love his throwing motion. He's gritty. There was concerns with him being like an alcoholic, I guess, was like the concern here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was like the concern with Matt Corral. But like the thing was, he just like opened up that he had like a problem with drinking, and he like was getting help for it. And I admire that. That's awesome for him to like, admit that. And the Panthers got a steal. So he was my QB3. I think Kenny Pickett lacks that like huge arm talent. Obviously, the small hands have never worked out in NFL history. Like that's obviously like a meme with him. But I just don't see a lot of upside. Like he feels like the Mac Jones of the class, where like he's like NFL ready day one. Like I think if he were to start day one, I wouldn't be surprised. Like he is NFL ready. But like, what's the upside here though? Like
I agree.
You're not getting a top 15 quarterback out of him. He's going to be at best a barely below average quarterback. Like he's not better than the top 11 guys. He's not going to be better than Jalen Hurts or Mac Jones or Tannehill or Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott or Derek Carr. Like I don't see the upside. So I didn't love the pick. If he started day one, I'd be okay with it though. Truly.
No, I agree. I think for at the draft, I was upset that it was Kenny Pickett because you look at the Steelers and kind of what we talked about. We just don't think that they're going to be a very good team this year. Well, why wouldn't you draft Malik Willis, who was, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinions, and kind of like Trey Lance, where you develop them, right? Take a year. And that's why you have Mitchell Trubisky there for a year, the bridge quarterback. So I think with them going Kenny Pickett, he has to go, for me, he has to either start like week 1 or 2. Because what you said, he's the most pro-ready quarterback. This isn't somebody that's going to sit behind Mitchell Trubisky and learn stuff. He needs to play right now. He's the most pro-ready guy. So he's not like, Malik Willis, which, once again, would have made more sense because you develop him throughout the season. So I think we're probably going to see him a couple
Yeah.
games in the season, if not possibly week 1.
Yeah, I don't like the move like as like a philosophy standpoint. Like this whole like I feel like Mike Tomlin's gonna die on this hill of having winning seasons, and I don't like that. I really do
Yeah,
not like that
that's what it
because we're
felt
not
like.
competing.
Yeah.
We're not competing for a title. Like we're not
Right.
competing. We're not even competing for a playoff win. If we make the playoffs, we're losing
Yeah.
that game. We are not
Especially
a
with how stacked the
AFC
is.
with how stacked the AFC North is. Like
Right.
even and like here's the truth about Deshaun Watson. It's probably a low chance he gets suspended for a whole year. He'll probably get suspended 10 games, 8 games.
Mhm.
So he'll be back for the playoffs.
Mhm.
We can't compete with Deshaun Watson. We can't compete with Lamar Jackson. You can't compete with Joe Burrow and this amazing young Bengals team with Kenny
Right.
Pickett. So
Right.
what's the plan here? Because if you're just trying to stay mediocre, you're never gonna have a top 5 pick. You're never gonna have a high draft pick in general to get a cornerstone offensive tackle or the best corner in the draft or an amazing linebacker or a top 5 quarterback. You're
Right.
never going to have that upside. So why not go with a guy like Malik Willis and then die on the hill of Mitchell Trubisky for an entire year and
Right.
let Malik develop? It just didn't make sense in a lot of different areas. And it just felt like a lateral move that just is disgusting because you know that you're going to be stuck in mediocrity for a long time.
And that's exactly what it felt like. Just saving the winning seasons to go, hopefully 9-8 or whatever it is now.
It's like, that doesn't even feel like a good season. Like, to me, 9-8 is not a good season.
I mean, that's what they went last year, and it was like awful. You knew that they weren't going to do anything in the playoffs. So
it was like, oh, our draft pick is just falling and falling.
Yeah,
like what?
Exactly.
It's like, what's the point here? You know what I mean?
Right. No, 100%. So we'll see what happens with the Steelers. Hopefully, hopefully we're wrong and Kenny Pickett ends up lighting the league on fire. Highly, highly unlikely, but hopefully, right. So second overall pick. You already talked about Christian McCaffrey. But I mean, for me, I'm sitting here and I'm struggling. Like, once JT's off the board, who are you going with your second overall pick? We'll just say, for a regular standard draft, a 0.5, no quarterback, 2 quarterback super flex leagues. Who are you going with the second overall pick?
Second overall, is we talking best ball or are you talking redraft?
Redraft. We'll do.
We're talking redraft.
We'll do redraft for this.
Yeah. So for redraft, it's pretty clearly Austin Eckler for me.
Okay.
Like I think RB2 finished last year. There's no reason why he wouldn't compete and be phenomenal again this year with Zion Johnson added to this at left guard or right guard, was awesome. And still has Justin Herbert at quarterback. Like the offense is going to be phenomenal. The defense got better, so more possessions. Like it feels like Austin Eckler is a clear 102 for me. If you want to say Cooper Kupp, that's completely fine as well.
So that's what I was honestly thinking, maybe leaning wide receiver for me, just because I do like Austin Eckler, and I think he is phenomenal. Like you said, this offense is going to be awesome. The other guy that I would probably lean would be Cooper Kupp. So I do think it's, for me personally, it's not a spot that I would want to be in. I'd rather be in like the 8th overall pick, because then I'm able to stack a couple of guys that I really like in that range. But it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting year to see who truly climbs up to number 2. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, honestly, in that second overall.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Derrick Henry. I mean, like he was the RB1 through whatever 8 weeks or whatever it was, averaging like 27 fantasy points a week. Like he was awesome. But the like we said, the rule of 1500, like there are so many guys I'd rather have than Derrick Henry. Like I'd rather have Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Dalvin. Like there's a better argument for Dalvin Cook at the 102 than Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion. And that is literally just centered around the fact that Dalvin Cook will get you 20 points when he's playing, and when he's not playing, Alexander Madison will get you 20 points.
Yeah, so
and you have to get Alexander Madison.
Yeah.
Like that to me feels like a better pick, like a safer pick, a almost equally as high upside pick. Like we saw Dalvin Cook have that over 300 plus point fantasy season already. Like he can have that. The offensive line should be better. The offense should be better with Kevin O'Connell at head coach now, and like Kirk Cousins is awesome. Like you have Adam Thielen back, take away pressure from him. You have KJ Osborne, who was actually really good in his absence last year. Like Justin Jefferson obviously is phenomenal. Like I like taking Dalvin Cook over Henry and McCaffrey. Like I just don't see it. I think people are reaching and living in the past with those two guys.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be how long are we living around, which he is when he plays, obviously averaging 27 points, but how long are we going to live in the hype of the 2019 season? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's like, yeah.
And I don't know. Well, I wouldn't be shocked if he, plays 8 games this year and next year he's continued to be drafted in the first round because people just can't let it go. So,
yeah, I mean, like the argument for Christian McCaffrey every year is going to be when he plays, he's the best fantasy running back.
Yes. Yeah.
And like, if you have to justify your first round pick with that,
Right.
what are we doing? It's like I would get it if Christian McCaffrey had Alexander Madison backing him up. I would take him first overall. You know what I mean? Because then I'm guaranteed 28 fantasy points a week when he plays. I'm guaranteed 20 when he doesn't.
Right.
And I feel great about it, but he doesn't. He has Donta Foreman.
Yeah.
And he has Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
Like,
and that offense is just awful.
And Sam Darnold's horrible.
Terrible.
Yeah. So, it's like, I don't know.
Even if he had a competent backup, like you just wouldn't feel great because that offense would be one of the bottom tier offenses in the NFL. So,
yeah.
All right, so let's move into the last segment here where we're just going to talk about, real life, TikTok, all right? Let's talk about TikTok and how you started with TikTok. Was it just one day you're like, maybe you're already on this app and you're like, shit, I guess I'll just start posting. What made you post on TikTok?
Yeah, so I started making TikToks around November of 2020 was when I first started making TikToks. And that was my second or my third or fourth year playing fantasy. My first years, I didn't really know anything about it. I just drafted players I thought were cool. And then my third year, really taking it seriously was the year prior to making TikToks. And then my fourth season was making TikToks. That was when I started. And I was watching the fantasy footballers one morning, eating my Chick-fil-A, which is something I did. I did on every Saturday morning going up to a Sunday. I would get Chick-fil-A breakfast and watch their hour-long YouTube videos they have. And I was watching them and I was like, you know what? These guys are awesome. I really enjoy watching them. I enjoy hearing them talk about fantasy football as people. They're cool people. But I feel like I don't listen to a lot of their advice. I feel like I know better.
Right.
That was a little bit of when you first start really diving deep into something you really care about, you think you know the most right away.
Right.
But I really did think that I had just as much knowledge as them. I probably didn't, but it was damn near close. And I was like, you know what? This is something I could make content in. I'm bored. It's middle of COVID. I might as well just make a couple TikToks. Made my first TikTok. It was my week 7 or 8 starts of the week. I forgot to put Tyreek Hill in there. I just completely forgot he even existed. It was it was horrible videos for the first month or two. And then after that first season, it was a 2020 season, then going into the 2021 season, going into last season, I really dove into really researching what makes the RB1 overall, what makes the wide receiver 1 overall, what makes a top 10 running back, the different draft strategies, 0 running back and why it's horrible, stuff like that. And just going really deep into the strategy side of fantasy football and the concepts of it. And I was like, okay, I really feel I know what I'm talking about now. And then that offseason going into last year, I had a couple of videos that just went super crazy and grew a crap ton of followers in the span of 2 or 3 months. And then here we are making videos every day.
So your first videos, when you first started, did any of those take off or not really?
Kind of they got more views than I should have been getting for sure. I was getting 6, 7, 8,000 views, with 800 followers. So I was doing
anybody back then, who was your competition? Who was in the space right then?
Yeah. So there was 4 guys that I remember really distinctly being in the space. It was Fantasy Football HQ. They're 2 kind of older guys. Yeah. They stopped posting. It was My Fantasy Guy. I think that's his username. He stopped posting too. He was someone who was super cool. I liked his videos a lot. He had 40K when I had 0. So he was someone I looked up to for sure. There was Prophet, Fantasy Football Prophet. Yeah. He was big back then. He stopped posting as consistently, still posts, but not really as much. And there were some other smaller accounts that had 8, 9, 10K, but really the fantasy space was wide open.
Right.
no one had a lot of followers. And even right now, it's still really wide open on TikTok for sure.
No, I agree. And how about, this is something that, I try to encourage a lot of my followers. There's not many people out there, but for the people that do, what is your advice to somebody that maybe they're a little hesitant to posting on TikTok or just any social media in general of putting themselves out there? What is your one piece, a couple of pieces of advice, the main things that you would encourage someone to do it?
Yeah. Number one though is no one gives a crap?
Yeah.
Dude? Like we're not in high school anymore. Like it does not, people aren't going to be like stalking your stuff and like sending it in their group chat and like, oh, look what he's doing. Like
right.
the worst thing that could happen to you making a TikTok or making content on something you care about is one, it completely flops and you get like no following from it and nothing ever turns out of it. And you said you could try.
Yeah.
And like the worst case, I guess, out of that could be like someone making fun of you. Who gives a crap?
Yeah.
Though?
Who
like,
cares?
It does not matter. Like I remember when I first started making TikToks, one of my buddies was like, oh, you're making TikToks. Like, isn't that like an app for kids, people dancing, stuff like that? And it's like, and now I do full-time content creation. This is like my career. Like it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, all it takes is you to like get over that like mental block of like, oh, I'm scared of being judged. And then you'll be fine. But it doesn't matter. And think about the people who are judging you though, right? Like if someone's really going to judge you for trying or for wanting to talk about something you care about, what kind of person is that? And why do you care about their opinion?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. They're not one of your friends. Like who gives a shit what Rhonda from high school thinks about you posting, you know, who gives a shit?
It also doesn't really matter too, because like their opinion is completely invalid to your like success. Like if they like think that you're not good enough or whatever, it doesn't matter. But also too, if you're going to make content, one thing you can't do is you can't do it halfway. No. Like you can't just like, I'm going to post like once or twice a week on TikTok and expect that I'm going to blow. No. You got to post like multiple times a day and like really grind. And like, it took me like almost an entire year to hit 100K. Like and that's like a lot faster than most people. Like that's not what you should expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's very few guys I see that just come on the scene and blow up like immediately. Like who's been blown up recently? They do that one like prediction of like lunch prediction. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. BDG
or whatever.
They have a TikTok. It's Nick Ercolano. He makes really good shit. But going back to the point you said, I mean, just think about that. Like when they first started posting that, because I followed them from the beginning from YouTube, and when they first started posting that, they were sitting at like, you know,
6K, I think.
Yeah, 6K followers for such a long time, and those videos that they were putting out did nothing. And then it was like day 30 something, Cinco de Mayo. The whole thing just absolutely blew up. So, I mean, going back to what you said, like if you think that posting, you know, 2 times a week is going to do anything for you, you're nuts. What I would say is post literally as much as you can, and who gives a shit as to what you're posting. One of those things is going to go off. But the thing is too, is just focus on what you want to talk about. What is it that you want to talk about? Go look at people in your space, see what they're doing, and just be a carbon copy. And then just have your own spin on it. Just be you, and it's different. That's good.
Yeah, like for the fantasy space, like you guys can apply this to really anything else. But like what I learned like right away on TikTok is like, one, like you want to post at good times in the day. Like you don't want to post at like 9:00 in the morning. No one's on TikTok then, right? Like you want to post when people are actually on the app. So like for me, ideally, I can post around like 3 or 4 o'clock Arizona time, and then post again at like 7 or 8 o'clock. And just like you did say, like post as much as you want right away. Like you can post as much as you want right away. But I would say this too, like focus on making like actual like good content. Like you shouldn't like making like some shit like that took you 5 seconds to make and like it's not going to blow up because it's not good content. Like just, you know, like use your head, like use your brain here a little bit. Like if it's not good content, it's not going to do well. That's why you see a lot of times like people who are trying to promote like stuff like Underdog or like any sort of ad that just like doesn't do well. Like their videos get 100,000 views and then their ads get 5,000 views. It's because people don't like the content. And like, it's because you can tell it's an ad. So they scroll. It's like TikTok is like it's the easiest social media platform to figure out. It's like, you just post good stuff twice a day and you will like grow, but you got to like actually care about what you're talking about too. Like if you don't care about fantasy football, don't make fantasy football content.
Don't talk about that stuff. Absolutely. That's the biggest thing, is just figure out what you're passionate about. Just start making stuff and you'll figure it out as you go. It's really, like in the beginning when I was first posting shit, like it was such cringy stuff. And I was like, my God, looking back at it, it's like, what was I thinking? Like that obviously wasn't good. But now you know what you do. You know what people want to hear and talk about what's going on. Then you talk about that kind of stuff. Another part, start series. Like I'm running a series right now that's gotten me so many followers over the past week. Like just do series that people can go through and watch like 6 of those videos and like, oh, okay. And that's why their shit's hitting off right now. The guessing the lunch just makes sense. So
I will say though, like with them, like their content that's blowing up is not related to what they're talking about.
No.
So like
I
that's
agree.
that's something that you want to be like careful about though, because like what you really don't want, like this is how an account can like die on TikTok, is if you have a shit ton of followers that don't give a crap about your
What
content.
you're talking
because
about.
because then if they just like scroll past your videos and like they followed you for something you don't do anymore, like let's say they stop this lunch trend and half these people who are following them are just from the lunch trend and they don't care about fantasy football. If TikTok sees in their algorithm that, oh, we're pushing these videos to their own followers and they're not engaging, there's no way you're getting on the For You page, because if your own followers don't engage with it, there's no way other people are. And that's how like they think. That's how TikTok algorithm thinks. So it's like that can be really scary when you're like talking about other stuff. That's why I rarely post other stuff that's not related to fantasy football, because I don't even want it to blow up, because if it does, it's like almost detrimental. But like that guy makes good content. Nick, you said his name was, like, he makes good stuff on YouTube, so I'm sure he'll be fine either way. But you could, it is scary though. Like you don't want to get in that pit trap.
I agree. Well, that wraps it up, and I appreciate you, Max, for coming on. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully you'll come on again soon. Well, as we get closer to the season, I'll invite you back. We'll talk some more fantasy football. So thanks, man, and have a great day.
Dude, I appreciate you having me again. It's been fun, and then let me know whenever you want to come on again, because I literally have like every morning free, because like I said, I just make content. So
sounds good. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Have a great day. Peace out.